Probably. Jim,
What?
I see you.
Yeah. All right.
Hi.
You good?
Awful quiet here.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the City of Wildwood Planning and Parks Committee meeting for today, Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. And at this point, we'll do a roll call. Ms. Ripto,
Chair Galani,
here.
Councilmember Robleski. Here. Councilmember Trottier,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember Crayons,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
and we have a quorum.
Excellent. Awesome. At this point, I will take a motion for the approval of the minutes from the committee's meeting from Monday, August 18th, 2025. Councilmember McCutcheon, you got a second? Councilmember Blisky. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Abstention, one abstention. No opposed, one abstention. All right, that takes us next to our public participation. Do we have anybody online? I see Councilmember Marshall in here. Were you here to participate?
Just the watershed.
Okay. Anybody online then?
If anyone online would like to participate in the public input session, please use the raise hand feature and we'll promote you. Thank you.
None? Okay, no public participation, which will take us straight into our action items. And at the beginning, we've got planning matters. We have 5 items ready for consideration. And we will start off with the Stormwater Management Master Plan. And we have a presentation by Phil Blon. And I'll first talk, Director Vudich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thanks for being here tonight. We always do appreciate it. As I often say, we can't do it without you, so your attendance is great, so thank you. We are honored tonight to have 2 representatives with us that have been working with the city for probably now almost 18 months. And I say 18 months because we held interviews back in March of 2024 to consider the consultant team that would ultimately provide us a stormwater management master plan that was consistent with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's template. Phil and Paula. Phil is from HR Green. Paula is from M3 Engineering. And they have continued to work with the city, primarily the Department of Public Works and the Department of Planning, on alternatives to that original plan concept. Because as you know, that original plan concept had a price tag of almost $1.5 million. It'd be a difficult process to say we're going to spend that amount of money when people are struggling with day-to-day problems with stormwater erosion, loss of private public property, et cetera. The engineering team understood and they came back with a proposal for what I would call the Stormwater Management Master Plan Light, and that cost was approximately $300,000. So tonight, the presentation is twofold. One on the Stormwater Management Master Plan, the new version, and the components, the success that they've had doing this for other communities, and that success is identified or represented by grants they've received for work in the creeks. So it's not necessarily you have to do that expensive plan. Like HR Green and M3 Engineering are saying you can do a less expensive plan and still tap in the funding to help your problems. And then secondly, and I think equally important, is Bill's been talking with the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District at length about Proposition S, the tax that is going to be dispersed to municipalities in their jurisdiction. And we've heard rumors that we'll get somewhere around $300,000 a year. So Phil's been kind of digging in there with them, and I'll have some more information on that. And then it is the intent of the department to have someone from the sewer district here at our October meeting if the budget process allows. But regardless, since the availability of the revenue is scheduled, I think, for 2026, if not in October, we'll certainly try for November. I'm gonna let the 2 of them kind of do the brief introductions, and then with the chair's permission, I think they're ready to go. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Sure.
I'm Phil Blon. I'm a civil engineer. I've been working on stormwater and other civil infrastructure projects for about 25 years. And including in stormwater master plans throughout St. Louis County. HR Green's been working for a number of other communities, Kirkwood, on a country and a few others. And I've done this other parts of the country and even on some US military bases in other countries. So the streamlined approach, well, I'll introduce herself too, so go ahead. And then I can jump into the
I'll
project.
be quick. I'm Paula Kowalski. I'm also a civil engineer with M3 Engineering Group. I've been working with stormwater for maybe about more than 10 years, less than 15. And a variety of different projects, roadways or watersheds or dams. And I can let you continue.
So Joe had mentioned the streamlined approach that we suggested, and it's similar to what we've done for the other communities in St. Louis County that have either had issues in the past that drove their need to do a plan. Quite a few communities, it's the Proposition S money that's they feel like they ought to have a plan to figure out how to best utilize that source of revenue and some of the other sources of revenue that they have for stormwater projects. So if we follow kind of similar approach that we have for the other communities, we can do it much more efficiently than the original approach that had developing the nine element water quality plans, which is a little bit different. That and plus some of the analysis that was in the original scope that really drove up the costs. But we found we can gain a good understanding of what's going on with the stormwater problems based on information that you have. And fortunately, Wildwood has a lot of information that we can build from, and public outreach would be a big component of the stormwater master plan. So between the information you have from your past erosion task force efforts and some of the other studies that have been done from USGS and others, and then we'll give the public an opportunity through a couple of open houses and perhaps some other ways to tell us about their issues, and then pulling all that together along with just our knowledge of rainfall and runoff and other factors that drive stormwater and drainage in St. Louis County. Based on our experience with other communities in the area, we can get a good understanding of what's going on and conceptualize some projects and create some accurate cost, opinions of cost that you can then use to budget and prioritize. So that can all be done without the extent of modeling that was in the original scope. And we've done projects like that before, but usually the clients for that are much larger clients, much different types of places. So you don't need the type of scope that the Army Corps of Engineers had when I was working on Marine Corps Air Station in Japan. You guys can use something that's a little more right-sized. The thing about the 319 grants, which is kind of what drove Wildwood's original desire to pull together the water quality plan. Stop me if you have questions. I'm kind of using some terms that I'm assuming maybe you're familiar with from past discussions. But you can still qualify for 319 grants without spending Wildwood's money developing the plans that are necessary. So in order to get a 319, yeah, go ahead.
So I'm gonna be the guinea pig here.
Yeah.
What is 319?
So it's section 319 of the Clean Water Act, and that allows you to get grant funding, federal money that's dispersed to the Missouri DNR, that the DNR then they implement and run the program. And their whole budget for the state of Missouri is about $1.5 million a year in grants. They usually do award about 5 or 6 projects a year. The life cycle of a project is about 3 years. And so if you have a 9-element watershed plan for a watershed, that already exists, then if you have a erosion problem, and a lot of your stormwater problems are erosion problems, it could potentially qualify for that funding.
Is this, is this similar to satisfying a stormwater master plan requirement for the EPA? Is it one and the same, or is that something different?
I think that when you're describing that, you're describing the same thing.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, EPA sets standards for how this is done, that comes out of the implementing the Clean Water Act. And then it's delegated to states to actually administer it.
Is this plan exclusive to Wildwood? Because I know there was some talk in the past, like especially when it pertains to the EPA, that they would prefer
Yeah.
that all communities along a watershed sort of be included.
Yes, they prefer to do it by a larger watershed and have all the communities within that watershed and other entities involved. For example, if there's a state park, the DNR, another part of the DNR that runs the state parks would be involved as a stakeholder.
Okay.
So if we're looking at Cox Creek, which starts its headwaters.
Yeah.
Up here, over here somewhere, so actually that way. But it runs down into Chesterfield.
Mhm.
So if we're looking at gaining funds for that, we would need to coordinate with the city of Chesterfield to have a better potential for
Well, this-
obtaining a grant, or I may be skipping ahead
Yeah,
here.
well, this is what I'm trying to tell you. The strategy I see for this, for at least to start off,
Okay,
is that you have you have one watershed where there already is a plan. It's Kiefer Creek watershed.
mhm,
You have another watershed where others are developing the plan and Wildwood is participating. The Open Space Council received a grant to develop a plan for the Hamilton Car watershed. So, is that right? Yeah, okay, so that, so if the whole budget for the state is $1.5 million, that's all the projects they have. So, and they're not gonna give any one city more than one project at a time.
mhm.
And I mentioned earlier that the life cycle of the project is 3 years, but it takes about 2 years to apply for it. So you have about 5 years where you have a shot at getting one project. All right, so if there's enough issues within Hamilton Car Creek or Kiefer Creek that you could just apply for projects in those watersheds for 319 because they have existing plans.
Mhm.
And that won't, if you get a project, if you apply for this and get one of the projects funded, that's a success. And you'll have, some funding towards the project, somewhat significant amount of funding, that $350,000 or so towards the project. That will allow your, Wildwood's money to go further because you're getting this funding. But you don't have to have, in order to successfully get a grant, you don't have to have watershed plans for your whole city, so it could be a longer term goal to try to partner with others to do that. But I don't know that it would necessarily be a wise use of Wildwood's money to go alone developing those plans, because you'd spend about as much money as
Yeah.
you'd get back in the grant just developing the plan. So it wouldn't make any sense, especially when other people or other organizations do that. You just, you'll have to wait or try to participate, try to move it along, but it's kind of a longer term thing to try to figure out how you could strategize to get some more plans implemented without spending a lot of Wildwood money doing it. One more thing I was gonna is that in the past, you could get a Section 319 grant to develop a plan. They've stopped doing that, but I think it's only temporarily. I think what they've decided is that they've recently got a bunch of plans up and they want to kind of steer some more money towards implementing the plans before they get even more plans going. So sometime in the future, you may be able to get a grant to do a plan again too.
Question. So you've already investigated this problem for Wildwood? Or watershed problem?
We have been talking to the city for the past year and a half or so, you know, as to figure out how to help. So we have some understanding of what your issues are.
What has caused all this erosion in Wildwood? In your opinion, why do we have such a, I heard it's gonna be like $30 million to fix. What was the cause of this problem?
So you have development that sends more water to your creeks faster than they can handle. And
Developments.
yeah,
caused
it's development, and the developers would do their stormwater plans for their development, but then you don't have the infrastructure downstream to receive it. You have creeks that were natural creeks that you know, used to receive the water slowly, and now it runs off really fast and it gets there all at once, and then the forces are much greater.
Is this like something developed over 30 years or 40 years?
Yeah,
So it's, okay, so it's development created this.
Yeah, well, first you have the terrain, right? If you
Right.
compare to maybe southern Illinois, right? Here it's very hilly. Second, like he says, you increase, trying to use some terms that it's easier to understand. You add asphalt, concrete, the development. The water before used to infiltrate, runoff would go slow down the creek, now it goes way faster. And in
Just the the asphalt.
in
and all that
addition
stuff.
to, you know,
Correct.
the steep slopes and, you know, the creek wants to meander and erodes, you know, and
So,
it's kind of,
so when we okay developments now, we better make sure it's all being done right. I think we are, right?
I think so, and the good news is that what Paula and Phil are referencing was a standard that was used by St. Louis County that MSD promulgated that was very poor, in my opinion. And so that's why a lot of the older basins were designed not to accommodate a range of storms and intensities of storms, so they don't function very well. And that's why part of what the Watershed Erosion Task Force is doing is looking at going back upstream, retrofitting them to the new standard so they actually work. We're blessed and cursed in one way. We're on the northeast edge of the Ozark uplift, which means we have the great topography, the hills and the valleys. But we also got a lot of clay and chert soil. And it doesn't hold well when it's exposed due to development. And then obviously the developers don't come back and do the steps they need to stabilize it as well as I'd like to think they would.
Thank you.
He had something still.
Just one more question. I just wanted to verify, have you looked at the past sets of information that our watershed committee has put together, or are we working here to enlist your help to do that review? I just want to make sure I'm on the same page with everybody, sorry.
The latter, you know, that's what we'll be contracted to do, but we have looked initially at that, so we have some familiarity with what
I
you've
don't know
done.
if it's that much.
And we also, HR Green did a couple separate projects for MSD that happened to be in Wildwood.
Yeah,
That MSD has 2 projects that are going through their process that we helped study during the preliminary phase.
okay. And then one last question. Based upon the information we have on the proposal that you're putting together, what's your timeline on that?
So timeline, what usually drives it is once we get started planning a public outreach at the beginning, and usually 2 public outreach sessions to give people a
Okay.
chance to go to one or the other. And then gathering that information and then planning, and then going through the master plan process.
Okay,
So the, if you add that public outreach step to it, it goes to about 9 months. But there's
Okay.
about 6 months of really just cranking on developing the plan.
Okay.
After we gather all that information and have those outreach sessions.
Councilor Rodmer?
Just a quick question. I believe typically when you're developing some type of stormwater master plan, part of the plan incorporates the concept that whatever you fix doesn't create a problem downstream. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, great.
That's
The reason
what-
I ask
yeah.
that is because, for example, on Calks Creek, when it crosses into Clarkson Valley, it passes right by the end of a lake that is bordered by an earthen dam that is starting to experience pretty significant erosion. Very good, thank you.
Good? All right. Anybody else? Councilor McCutcheon?
Yeah, I saw in the preparation documents that it said Bonham Creek and then in parentheses it said Cox Creek. Can you explain that to me?
So the way the watersheds are grouped by, let's see, who did the Huck stuff? Who did the Huck watersheds? Whoever, they consider that one larger watershed, you know, they're grouped together by EPA. And they're 2 different watersheds, but if you're going into the 319 grants and how those are organized, those 2 watersheds would be grouped together and viewed as one.
Director Village?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of quick questions. So again, just so I understand, the funding that's available from the Missouri Department of Natural Resources per year is about $1.5 million.
Yes,
It's usually divided between 4 or 5 different communities.
correct.
It's not a lot of money for the type of problems we're dealing with,
That's correct.
but it's better than nothing. So I'm
Yeah,
not
exactly.
gonna give horse in the mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why we talk about prioritizing projects and the benefit cost. You
Certainly.
might have a location that was identified to have some problem. But maybe you don't need a project at this moment, you know, and we can help to prioritize which project actually needs attention right now. And we do talk about it, up to 10 concepts of projects in the new scope. And with the help of you guys analyzing also not only the tools that we have about, let's say, a erosion tool that we have that can per time that can detect how much erosion will come and other factors like you have a creek, it's eroding, and you have a house, a shed, and utility. In 5 years, everything's gonna go to the creek and the cost is 1 million, but fixing the bank is 500,000 and the benefit cost. Should we fix now or wait 5 years and, you know, spend more money? All categories to prioritize, we included, and yeah, so we don't have all the money in the world, so that's kind of how we focus on prioritizing.
And so Phil, you mentioned that if you apply, that starts the clock, right?
Right.
And then it takes 2 years to work through the grant process, and then you have a 3-year window.
Correct.
So the best we could expect is every 5 years, we might be eligible and receive a grant.
Correct. Yeah. So it wouldn't make sense to spend almost as much as one grant to develop a plan. You know, but you can try to coordinate with others to see if there's opportunities to develop more plans, you know, as a longer term thing. But you can draw from the 2 plans you have, the Kiefer Creek or Hamilton Car Creek, once that one's finished, you know, to be kind of the pool of areas that are eligible for that grant. And your MSD funding can go towards anywhere that's within the MSD boundary. Not all of Wildwood is within MSD's jurisdiction, but the portions of Wildwood that are more developed are in MSD's area. So the $300,000 that you will start getting from MSD, you have to apply for it, but it's not competitive. That money will continue to just accrue, but to actually get it, you do go through a formal application process so that you can show MSD what you're doing with the money and that it meets the goals of their program. And then they'll release that to you. So, but if you don't apply, you don't lose it. It'll just continue to accrue there, year after year.
Councilmember Catch.
Do we have to, the city have to use any matching funds, or is it a straight grant?
There's a straight grant, you know. There's sometimes some things that are not eligible for it, but if it's purely stormwater project, everything will be eligible for it. If you add some other components to the project that are more of a parks component or a roadway component that's added to it that isn't part of the project strictly for correcting stormwater, then that type of, you'd have to pay for that. But strictly fixing stormwater problem, that's 100% eligible.
Councilmember Schroeder.
The 319 grant, not to dwell on it, are they, you mentioned that they were issued by community or is it by watershed?
It's it's issued to, if you're
To the
applying
community.
to the municipality, yeah.
So if Wildwood has 7 different watersheds, they can apply 7 times.
You could, but they're not going to award more than one grant
Right.
to the same city at the same
So you
time.
pick your worst one.
Yeah.
So with the 319, is there anything that comes attached to that, dealing with, it's EPA's money? Are there any enhancements that the project would require, long-term monitoring or something above and beyond that we wouldn't normally do because we're accepting their money?
No, the way it's done is that it's formatted to have those 3 years, 1 year for engineering and design, year 2 is construction, and then year 3 is a post-construction monitoring period.
I guess my
Yeah,
question.
But nothing beyond that 3rd year.
So rephrasing the question, the money does not seem substantial given the problem we have. So I'm curious, if we were awarded the money and we accepted it, are there project enhancements because it is EPA under the Clean Water Act that we would have to build the project, to a greater extent than we normally would just to fix the problem?
Not necessarily. If you apply to fix an erosion problem and we put in the application that fixing the erosion problem will improve water quality because chunks of the creek if sediment is a problem that is identified in there as implementing the plan is meant to fix, then, just fixing your erosion problems would qualify. You just have to be careful in the grant application that you're applying to fix the erosion problem and therefore improve water quality. What the 319 grants are not for is fixing flooding problems. They're fixing erosion problems, but it's a good thing for Wildwood to look at because you have a lot of erosion problems. So right now we are working on a project for Town and Country that received a 319 grant, and it was 2 small creeks each of them go through about 5 or 6 yards, but large yards in Town and Country, kind of similar to some of your neighborhoods here. And each of those projects is about $180,000, and so the grant was for both of them together, about $360,000, and that funded those projects. They're pretty small projects, but they are fixing some problems that Town and Country had, and they were able to get, a majority of the project is funded by the grant.
Councilmember Dowdell.
Joe, looking at what our watershed committee has already identified, am I correct to possibly assume that we would have projects for specific properties along Fox Creek that would meet what he had just spoken about in that process.
Certainly Cox Creek, of the 6 priority projects,
Yeah.
5 are in Cox Creek and 1 in Bottom.
Okay.
And so, from the perspective of what Phil just described, I think any of those would be eligible.
Okay.
Just, yeah, you just don't have a plan yet, so I'd use the MSD money towards those,
Okay.
at least initially.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So strategically following Phil, since we're getting MSD money primarily for the east half of the city, we would apply for 319 for the west half, which isn't funded by MSD because they don't provide.
Perhaps, but the 319 again would have to stay within Kiefer, which is in the east half, or Hamilton Car Creek, at least initially, until there's more plans developed.
Where plans developed. And your proposal is to develop a plan, let's say, for either Fox Creek or Bottom Creek that would allow for us to do a 319 application.
No. No, our watershed plan, our new streamlined scope is a stormwater plan that will help you plan and prioritize your projects, understand what the fixes would be, what they would cost, how to prioritize some projects or the other. A key benefit of it is that we'd study the whole of the city of Wildwood. Some of your past studies have focused on where you've had some of the most problems, but if people want to feel like you took a, wider look at everything just to make sure you don't miss anything, and everyone's treated fairly, that'd be another advantage of doing the stormwater plan. But you'd end up with a prioritized list of projects and understanding what they cost and an understanding of how best to fund them, where to pull MSD funds to attack some problems, where to pull 319 funds to do some problems, and what other avenues of funding that could be applied to this. So you'd have a kind of a bigger picture of stormwater as a whole, what the problems are and what their solutions are.
Yeah. So Phil, so what you're saying right now is even if we were to do the streamline plan, the 319 is only eligible in Kiefer Creek and at some point in the future, Hamilton Car Creek.
Correct.
And the plan you're preparing doesn't address, let's say, the other 4 watersheds west of Route 109 that are not in MSD.
It doesn't develop a 9-element watershed plan for 319 eligibility. It doesn't do that, but it will cover all the watersheds and it will you'll get an understanding of what the problems are, what the solutions are, and what they cost, and how to fund them. But because you have the 319 funding eligible for Kiefer Creek and then coming soon Hamilton Car Creek, that's enough to get enough bites at the apple without having plans everywhere. That was kind of one of the key points I'm making is if you because you'll only the budget's only $1.8 million for the whole state or $1.5 million for the whole state, and you can just pick a good project from one of those watersheds where there's a plan existing, and that'll be your shot at trying to get a grant.
And I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Not certainly to say anything negative. The Open Space Council didn't necessarily consult the city before they applied. It was after the application had been awarded that we were told that, oh yeah, the Open Space Council is doing the 319 plan. I would probably have argued that Fox Creek, Bonham Creek, and certainly Cox Creek were more deserving of that effort than, let's say, Hamilton Car. So yes, my next question would be, with the permission of the chair, instead of doing an overall watershed plan, the 9 that are Wildwood, can you do a 319 plan for a single watershed?
You could, but that may not be the best use of your limited money because you'd be spending a good amount of money just developing the plan when you have a couple plans in development and you have, you know, I would suggest that make it a longer term plan to try to coordinate with communities to get more plans. And in the future, the MDNR will likely start awarding 319 grants again to fund the plans. So
So isn't that, what I just described, is that what, for the most part, the Open Space Council did? They picked one watershed and got 319 funding to do
Yes.
the plan.
yes. And like I said, the DNR stepped back from awarding grants to do plans, but I believe that's only temporary. I think what they're thinking is they want to spend money implementing plans for a while, and then they'll get back to awarding grants to develop new plans. But I'm trying to encourage you to not get lost into the just developing these watershed plans just to be eligible for 319 grant funding, because it's a big investment and the reward you would reap does not quite merit that level of investment. I think it's a better strategy to look at the watersheds where you have plans already in place or in progress, and projects in there that meet the 319 grant eligibility. I'd say they identify those as, hey, that 319 grant could fund that project. If you get a 319 grant, you may not, but if you do get one, that's a success, and you don't need watershed plans across your whole community right now to have a good shot at getting that grant. I think the other thing that the Prop S money that passed for MSD, that's a good source of money. Again, it's only $300,000 a year, and the extent of your projects are much larger, but that's money that is dedicated to fixing stormwater problems. So you need to make sure that you're using it most efficiently and wisely, and the watershed plan, the streamlined watershed plan, the stormwater master plan for the whole city would help you do that, because you'd have an understanding of where your problems are, what they are relative to each other, and what potential fixes would cost. And it's all consistent with each other, so you have an understanding of that. And when people ask, why are you doing this problem and you're not fixing my problem, you can direct an answer to them. Well, hey, we studied it, we prioritized the projects, this is what methodology we used, these are the projects that ranked to be the biggest problems, so we're working on them. And so you have a whole plan and you have a strategy.
Councilmember Dowdell?
Okay, so you're providing us with a long-term plan based on the current environment that we have. There are some spots in the city along these watersheds where we have homes that were built way too close to the edge of the creek to begin with. Those people are coming to us going, help, help. With these long-term plans, how do we then take that information and support those residents? Or should that be the residents' responsibility, since they made the decision to purchase a house, build a house along an already compromised watershed? Although in fairness to residents, not everybody knows what a compromised watershed looks like. So how do we as a city provide support, but balance that with the overall long-term plan? Does that make sense as a question?
It's a good question. But what you'll have from the stormwater master plan, you'll have all your problems identified and ranked and prioritized, and with fixes with dollar amounts. And then obviously you can't implement every project immediately.
No.
So there, may be some difficult decisions as to what's done first and what comes later. But you have, you have MSD doing their own projects too. And on top of this, besides the Prop S funding, MSD has their own projects that they're doing. And so, it's not hopeless. You guys have a plan and you're moving through it. But yeah, not everyone problem can be solved on day one.
So the goal of what you all are proposing and that we're paying for is that you would pull together all of what you see today and provide us with recommendations. I know, we could have a heavy-duty rainstorm and the evaluation along one hillside that goes into this creek could be dramatically changed. What steps do we need to have in place to take this master plan, but then continually refresh it to look at, we thought this was a number 6, but guess what? With that rainstorm, it now became a number 3. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, it is possible. Water does what water does. So I'm trying to figure out how this plan will remain germane for a 10-year period of time. I'm just arbitrarily picking a 10-year timeframe. How do we make sure that we are working effectively to address as many things as we can?
Yeah.
Especially since we don't have anybody in water specialty on staff. So
It's hard to predict the unknown. We could have a tornado and change everything, or earthquake, right? But we can develop right now with the current conditions and forecasting with a high amount of rain and come up with a ranking for that. Any other way of predicting like that, Phil? I'm thinking.
We've done updates to watershed plan, stormwater master plans, usually about 5 years out.
okay.
But what'll happen is when we've completed this study at the end of 9 months, you'll have some projects that have risen to the top and then it's just implementation mode as far as how to fund it, how to get a design project together, and then it goes into engineering, design and construction. And you have, you'll start getting some things built, some shovels in the ground and some of these problems fixed. And so you'll start seeing some results, and it'll be directed at where you see the greatest need. Sometimes what we find is the projects with the greatest need are the most expensive, so they might take longer. So sometimes communities will like to have some quick wins, have some smaller projects that are implemented faster so that people see results. Sometimes the communities find that, hey, we've been studying this, and we studied this, and we don't want to only pursue a big capital improvement project that's gonna be another 3 years before there's actually anything built. Let's pair that with 3 or 4 smaller projects that people can see some results, even though those smaller projects might not be the most important. So some communities choose that path, but sometimes depending on how it comes out, you do just jump right into the most needed project.
One more question. How do we improve our communications with MSD? Because that's been a sticking point for the city staff and even for some of us council members trying to get answers.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can help you with that.
Okay,
So I've worked with, a lot of people at MSD for a long time. So I think part of it is, I can let your staff and or even the council members know a little bit more, it'll give you a little more insight as to what MSD is thinking and why they're doing what they're doing. And, and the opposite.
just where they're at.
Yeah.
In their overall plan, when are they gonna hit Wildwood? And how does that change our implementation plan? Because they're gonna bring in their funding to take care of this issue that we know is an issue here, so we can move some funds on down the road. Those kind of communications have been very, very limited from MSD as far as what they're doing, where, when. And so if we're gonna
Yeah.
engage you, it'd be nice to have that kind of
Councilman Schreiner,
communication.
you had one, and then I got Councilman Rambo.
So I guess the answer is you can help us with that, correct?
Okay.
So I think the focus of this is to authorize the watershed management master plan for 300,000. You mentioned that there are 2 watersheds in Wildwood that either currently have plans or have plans in development.
They're different, they're different animals. Those plans are specifically, watershed plans specifically meant for the 319 program. So to improve water quality. The stormwater master plan looks at flooding and erosion problems, and will cover the whole community. And we will, where there are 9-element watershed plans, we'll look at those and incorporate information, so we're not like redoing any rework that's already been done. But it's a different thing.
That's what I was getting at. So this 300,000 takes that into consideration that some work, although not entirely applicable,
Yeah.
has been done. You will incorporate to the extent that you can. Okay.
Correct. And all those studies that have been done in Cox Creek, we'll incorporate. We're not, the $1.5 million approach involved, doing an exhaustive, data collection and modeling for the whole city and developing those watershed plans on top of it. That was everything that was in the original scope. And so we put together what was in there and put the cost of that, and that's what it came to. And so this the more streamlined approach is more what we typically do for communities in the in St. Louis County. And sometimes they do a little bit more. We've been working for University City for a long time, and we've done a little bit more for them than a typical community with their problems on River to Pear. But for the most part, the St. Louis County municipalities are interested in where are worst problems and how can we implement solutions to them that we can or fund.
Thank you.
Councilman Rambo?
Yeah, this is more for my own edification, so you don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but Mike, you seem to be taking the reasonable approach of identifying and prioritizing the areas of greatest need citywide without regard to which watershed they're in. And you also mentioned that, for example, Bonham Creek and Cox Creek are combined by some government folks, and it's considered a single watershed. So my questions really are, do we have other watersheds that sometimes are combined together? Like I'm thinking August Tavern Creek and Fox Creek. Are there any other places like that? And regardless of what your answer is, do you anticipate creating your plan just on the basis of the areas of need? Or are you gonna do a plan for each individual watershed and then just say, oh, there's no problems in August Tavern Creek? Because they're probably not, because there's not a lot of development that we've done out there. And so we have this new rain regime, so we're getting more intense rainfalls, 6 inches in 2 hours kind of thing. That'll erode anywhere. But it's not development based. And I think the problems that we're identifying as the worst are the ones that are development based, like the famous triple meander in Cox Creek and so forth. And so can you speak to that just a little bit, like how you're going to structure your plan, and answer my own personal question of, do we have other watersheds that are combined by the government?
Well, Hamilton Car Creek is combined, and other than that, I think the watersheds you're familiar with are all
Separate.
you would recognize. Yeah. So the the stormwater plan would be for the whole community. We would identify what watersheds are in, so we'll have that watershed map, that'll be part of what we do. You know, certainly it's, you know, inherently, it's integral to what we do. But the plan is for the whole city of Wildwood. But what watershed it's in is important because, you know, what it can determine, funding eligibility for different types of funds, you know.
Really? Why is that?
Well, because of those watershed plans that we've been talking about, you know, one exists.
Oh, sure, if it,
Because of
in
that.
other communities involved and maybe Franklin County in the case of the western ones and
Yeah,
those.
and then, yeah, you potentially partnering with other communities, yeah, or, and then being within MSD's jurisdiction, you know, is
Oh,
what
sure.
you qualify for the Prop S funding.
Sure. Okay, so yeah, so we have, there will be jealousy involved. Oh, you're spending all this time and effort and money in Cox Creek, and what about Fox Creek? Because there are people that are really, really suffering in Fox Creek, but there's only a handful of them, right? And so we have to, you know, that makes our job harder because we have to, you know, we have to say, okay, folks, you're gonna have to wait because this is a worse problem in terms of number of people affected. So we got those things to worry about.
But you'll have the stormwater plan that was studied and you can point to and say, well, this is the approach that was taken.
Sure.
Here's the results of it, and then the other thing it could be used, potentially could be used for down the road would be, hey, this identifies, you know, some X million dollars of projects, but it would take the city 25 years to get down the list,
Yeah.
piecing together some MSD funding, some other grant funding, and some revenue from the city. But if you wanted to get the same projects done in 10 years, well, then, you know, this would be, you know, something you could potentially bring to the voters and say, hey, voters, is this important? Make a decision. Do you want to have a tax to get these problems fixed faster, or do you just want to wait 30 years? That's your voting public's decision as to how they want to do that, you know. And
Councilmember Crayons?
So we have two plans for the 319, right? And how long will it take if we qualify for this plan?
for a 319 grant?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you have a project, one of your smaller projects, in one of those watersheds, you put together an application. That application process takes about a year.
A year.
And to put the application together and get it in there, and then find out, then the second year you find out if you're awarded or not.
Okay.
And then the third year is when you get started design.
Okay.
It's the federal government.
Yeah.
So,
And then, so in 2023, I put together an application for those projects in town and country. And then in 2024, they were selected and funded.
Okay.
And now in 2025, we're working on the design. And then in 2026, they will be constructed. And then in 2027, there's a monitoring period to make sure everything's good the first year, and then
Okay.
they'll be finished. So, and, you know, and I've done this, so for Brentwood, for the Brentwood Bound project, that part of that project got some 319 funding. So I was working for a different civil engineering firm at the time, but about 5 years ago, I was managing the Brentwood Bound improvements on Deer Creek.
Director Village?
So, Mr. Chair, Mr. Trottier mentioned looking at an expenditure of $300,000. Tonight, the department's intent was to give you background on that. As you know, in October and early November, we'll be going into the capital improvements program. So this was just kind of a precursor, so you'd have information as we talk about stormwater management.
We're not looking for
Tonight, the
action.
department was not asking for an action because we're just a few weeks away from having that discussion relative to all the other priorities the city has.
Ed, you got
Did you have anything to add?
That sounds great. I learned a lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming tonight
Thanks.
and presenting. And
Sure.
Thank you, Kate. City Administrator.
Thank you, Chair. I just had one really quick question before we let him go tonight. And just going about the process, it takes about a year to submit the application. If you have a 319 9-element plan in place, how much, I mean, does the city, would it need to elicit the help of an engineering firm like yourselves to submit the application itself? And if not, do you have any background you could share with us about how much like staff time or if a professional would be required to get it over the finish line with that year-long submission process?
Yeah, I would recommend having a consulting firm help you do that because that would, you wouldn't be doing it for the first time. So you'd have some experience behind it, but it's not that you physically couldn't do it, but it's filling out the forms and getting the information in the format that they want to see it.
And real quick, with your permission, Chair, so that said, even when you have the 9-element plan put together for a given watershed, there's still a decent cost that's going to be attached to just submitting it. So that 1.5, if we did all 9 of our watersheds originally, that was more so the basis, but then there would be additional costs associated with the submission itself. Just making sure, confirming that.
Correct, but it's not a whole lot to do that. I want to say we charge Town and Country $12,000 or $15,000 to apply for the plans.
Thank you. That's what I needed. Thank you.
The grant.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, one last question, I promise. So Paula and Phil, can we start applying to MSD for that Prop S money now, or do we have to wait till the first of the year? Or?
February, March 26th is when you apply for the first year's money.
Thank you.
Okay. So everybody good?
Just to clarify, one can apply for that money because I was at a presentation that MSD made down in U City here a couple of weeks ago, and they said they were gonna have the application process open this fall. Is that?
Yeah, I guess it's taken, it may have changed. I got an email today from someone I know at MSD who confirmed, actually yesterday I got the email. That confirmed that latest timeline because I'm keeping in touch with them. But I'm gonna see him tomorrow night.
Well, you would have your finger on the pulse better than I would, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great discussion, everybody. Very informative.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, that takes us to our next item under planning matters, which is the Main Street Extension in Ward 8. And I've got Director Vudich, or is City Administrator Lee?
Very briefly, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, this particular item was first discussed at the Administration Public Works Committee at the beginning of this month. Mr. Lee and the Department of Planning thought it appropriate to kind of forward it on to you because there are some ramifications relative to Village Green Phase 1 and 2, the new luxury villas at Latitude and R38. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lee.
Okay. Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chair Galani. I just wanted to give a quick update on the Main Street extension and kind of where we're at. So tonight, what you see attached to the screen here is the preliminary plan that is really ready to go in all forms in the sense that it would be ready to proceed to the right-of-way acquisition phase where our engineering firm would be able to go in, identify exactly what amount of land we would need on the northern edge, which is typically ranging from about 10 to 15 feet, depending on where that bow is in the road. That does include a larger sidewalk on the northern end that is consistent with Main Street on the western side. The southern side is contingent. We do have that 37-foot easement that would be necessary, right-of-way dedication necessary from the property that there's been a development proposal submitted to the city. But really tonight, the department wanted to present, the preliminary drawings that came with it to kind of touch upon what was discussed when that development did come through. There was originally a discussion of having a 24-foot inch wide slab thrown adjacent to Crestview Drive, which would create a 5-legged intersection on that side of where Main Street crossing ends with the Crestview. What this plan is presenting is the full scale Main Street that I think we've all discussed in the past, which would account for that same space, but would actually create a nice buffer in between. And then if you can zoom in on the plan itself, it does create kind of a perfect turnaround for folks. One thing that was a concern when, first looking at the concept is that folks that are going to be coming in from Taylor Road down to get to the park and possibly park on the parking spaces that are right adjacent to the future playground, they're going to need a place to turn around, and we do not want them going all the way into the neighborhood or finding another avenue. So that little crossover section that's on the kind of the about 50% through, that would allow for not only residents to be able to turn around and then get to the parking that they need, but it also would allow for a future location that if there were developments proposed on the southern or northern end, that would be the premier location to be able to access Main Street. So that's where the ramifications really come with here, is that there is easement necessary from 7 property owners on the northern end. There is a 37-foot land dedications that's needed on the southern end. So we do not have the land currently, but right now we are in a position to start getting the engineering set forth to start doing appraisals and proceed. So tonight we had this discussion initially with the Economic Development Committee, where we wanted to kind of re-engage Main Street, get moving on it, especially with the playground going to be built and also the Village Green coming close to its completion itself. We're going to be seeing more folks here in Town Center. So we wanted to kind of do a check-in with the council and the committee to really see, get feedback on this preliminary plan you're seeing today, and also to kind of set the stage for what's to come, which is going to be a lot of easement acquisition and really getting rights to Crestview from all the property owners that are adjacent to the street. So available to answer any questions. I know the Department of Planning is more than welcome as well, but just wanted to provide really a general update and kind of show what's to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, City Administrator Lee. Questions, Councilmember Dodwell?
Just real quickly, Thomas, where's Mr. Vunich, where's the western edge of City Green, Village Green?
On the plan?
On this drawing that we're looking at right now, is it where we see that what looks to be a driveway, and the 2 medians are separated so that you can make a right or left-hand turn out of the
Right.
road?
Where you can see in kind of it's a little bit right of center, where you see that white cross across the street itself next to where the parking begins. That was originally planned to be the entryway because there was going to be a natural surface trail directly adjacent to it that leads into the park that would kind of serve as a secondary access point. That said, that component of the plan will somewhat need to be redesigned along with the all-inclusive playground engineering, because we're going to have to ensure that pretty much the area where the parking spaces are, those are ADA compliant, and even, going above and beyond considering the overall mission of the playground. So just a note that where that current crosswalk is scheduled on the sheet itself, that will be most likely where we build off of to help access to the playground. That's directly adjacent to where the playground will be going.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Brisky?
Yeah, you mentioned one of my comments, Mr. Lee, we've talked about it on the phone, but which was the disabled parking. So I'm glad you added that, because that's one of the things that's really important with the playground, that we have parking on both sides for access, because we're building a playground that a lot of people are going to need closer parking to get to. And then the second one is really one from history of talking about private streets. But the comment that I mentioned to Mr. Lee is that the ordinance or the policy on the dedication of private streets and alleys would, we're looking at expanding Main Street. Great need, great addition, but we continue to not look at the policy, which continues to be treated differently for different types of requests. So this is a private street, Crestview, and we're saying we're going to go ahead and do Main Street extension. Yet Windsor Crest brought forward the petition to, based on the ordinance that was passed, saying that all in the town center update, saying that all alleys with present and future would be made public, And for that, we're being told, and we're told, that cannot move forward based on condition. And I continue to see again and again that things are brought forward and are approved without following the same process. So it's really just a comment that once again, this is another thing that I had mentioned before as a future event that would happen that's not following the policy in place, which we said would dictate. And wording was added by council to say the policy would be followed in the future, no exceptions would be made.
City Administrator Lee, do you?
Yep, I can answer a little bit of that. I mean, the way that we could address this within the policy itself would be to add a provision, and this, I will acknowledge that the current policy doesn't have this listed out, but stating that almost if the city is putting something within its capital project or it's acquiring territory as in a former road, privately owned road, as part of its own capital plans, but also an economic development initiative, it's acquiring it to make those public improvements, then that would almost override that policy. That would be the best way to approach it. I know that was something that Mr. Robolinski and I had discussed, but overall, the only way that if that policy were strictly applied to this street, the residents from not only the north side, but the south side to those two parcels, they would have to directly come to the city, request for the city to take it over prior, and then they would actually have to make improvements to the street. They would pretty much have to build out Main Street the way we would like it, and it would be put entirely, financial burden would be put entirely on the 8 owners, but 9 properties that are adjacent to the parcel itself. We would be a contributor of it, but the way that the Crestview parcel is laid out, it does have equal rights to each individual property owner that sits adjacent to it instead of it being halfway through the center median line. So that is, right now, if we wanted to make a change to the policy, the department could most definitely bring that back and have it for consideration at the next meeting. It's a pretty quick change to make. But if we were to strictly follow the policy in that regard, we would be waiting for the property owners to come to us to go through that process. More than happy to answer any questions on that, though.
Councilor McCutcheon, do you have a question?
Yeah, a couple of them, but Mr. Lee, I can't pronounce your last name, so I'm with Vicky. We need to, if we're gonna have policies and ordinances and guidelines and such, then I think we should stick to them. And to me, this sounds like an end around that we're doing. I understand ever since I've been on council, it's been a discussion to have Main Street extended, but it is a private street. And I know the city now owns part of it, but it hasn't been designated as a public street, the part that maybe it has been. I don't know.
Oh, no, I was.
We can't keep telling our residents no, and then we turn around and we do what we just told them no for. And I understand how much the city fathers, or whatever you want to call it, administration, whatever, want this to go through. But then my other question is, has the N38, have they actually brought a proposal forward? Is it in fruition? Is it going to happen? I mean, I haven't seen anything on it. I mean, you would see it first, Joe, but
Director Vulich?
Yes, actually, the Development and Zoning Review Committee has been presented the revised plan. It's a 44 lot plan, and it is attached villas, and it is a rental project again.
Okay, and but this is a little off the subject, but are they developing it with the partners that they originally came with? Have they added partners to it?
Same 2 entities, Bosworth Development and Realty and Benton Homes.
Okay. Yeah, and 3.5 million, that's a lot of money. I mean, when we started talking about this, it was like a million. Now, and I get costs go up and all that, but I'm with Vicky. We can't say, oh, we can do it, but you can't do it. And you're a resident of the city, and you were really the ones that own the city. And then we're gonna turn around. And I think if, N38 puts a development in there, they should be responsible for putting in that portion of Main Street. That's why we lost one of the other developments, is because we said you gotta put in Main Street and they couldn't afford that. And then we're gonna turn around and say, oh no, in 38, you don't have to contribute.
I don't think we said that.
So, no,
Well,
not exactly.
City Administrator Lee?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. McCutcheon, for and that's why we were wanting to bring this back. So we haven't proceeded with the right-of-way engineering component of this to actually establish exactly how much land would be needed on the northern and southern end. Tonight, the department was just giving an update and trying to get a little bit of a thermometer check from the council on whether or not we should proceed. There are those questions. We can obviously go back and edit the policy and review the policy. But if not, then we could also have the discussion today or through the capital improvement program that we're going to be discussing in the upcoming month, whether or not Main Street is something the city still wants to do. But overall, this is where we're really trying to give an understanding of if we wanted to proceed, here is what it would look like, minus the accommodations that are going to be built out for the playground. But I know that in previous discussions, Main Street has been top list. It's in the master plan, so it's something the department obviously was working off of. But I guess,
I would,
yeah,
yeah, I would say, and I'll get to your question in a second, Councilman Donald. I mean, we can go on for 2 hours having this conversation tonight. And I don't think it's necessary or really has any relevance to where we're at today. This is a potential proposition that maybe, I think, if we're gonna have a conversation, I think it should be done with the council and the capital improvements, because that, the council is gonna be discussing and debating on what to include in the capital expenditures for 2026. And so I think collectively, everyone will decide, is this something that would need to go in there or not? And then if we were to decide to put it in there, then we could figure out like what that looks like. But I think right now, we're gonna have, like I said, we could be here till 10 o'clock, just giving our opinions on latitude and the street and the private and this and that. So there's not really, I don't think we could get anywhere with an ongoing conversation about this tonight. I mean, we could take a couple questions or comments, but
I just have a
Yeah, go ahead.
logistical question,
Yeah.
not a political.
no, you're good.
The length of off-white above the new street that we're proposing, is that a sidewalk or is that the existing Crestview Drive? I'm looking at it
on the northern end there, Ms. Dodwell.
northern side. That's is that the existing drive or is that a sidewalk? Because
That
it
would
looks
be- Oh,
it's
sorry.
longer than the one on the south side, so that's,
Yeah, so that would be a constructed sidewalk, and the reason for it being larger in width to the southern end is if you go, and it's not shown in this drawing, it's a little bit. If you actually look at the sidewalk within Main Street crossing, you have a wider sidewalk on the northern end than you do the southern end. So that would just be pretty much stretching that sidewalk out east, and it would make it consistent with what's on the Main Street crossing side. Same with the road width as well.
okay. And then my other question is, there was comment made about individual landowners along this strip being willing to dedicate right-of-way to the city. Is that correct or is that incorrect?
That is correct. We would need 7 dedications, so actual land, we would need about 10 to 15 feet depending on where it is in the roadway, and I kind of point them out if you went to parcel by parcel, but they would also have to dedicate their rights to Crestview, which would allow for the removal of that pavement and then reapplying it with the newly reconstructed road. So there, oh, sorry.
Totally different than what we had originally put together, which was leaving Crestview in place and building a single lane or a single 2-lane road to the south of Crestview.
Yes, and that was originally proposed by the developer to get a connection point in there. And that would have, like you had just mentioned, that would have left Crestview in place, but would have had a road pretty much catty corner to it. And the only way that they were able to kind of engineer around that was to almost close off that end on the old Crestview and to create some type of crossover that would almost connect directly to that parcel, which is called Crestview Drive. This would be completely different, and the best way to explain it is it's almost identical and consistent with the version of Main Street that's within Main Street Crossing. It's practically taking that and then allowing for it, you know, going eastward to connect. But it's not going to be, the road will be as wide as what it is on the east side, but won't have those vertical, the kind of crosshatched parking that's available currently on next to City Hall.
Okay,
Councilman Rambo?
Yeah, I'm not gonna opine. Everybody's been doing that. We need to move on, but I want to ask if it's appropriate to make a motion for Mr. Lee and company to rework the policy and bring it to the next meeting as he suggested. Is that, Tom, is that something that's
Yeah, that would be, if, is the chair obliges, that would be most appropriate. We could have that added in. It would be a very small change to the policy, but it would just be adding in an item that's pretty much outlining that if a project is getting called for, you know, we could create some criteria too, but that could be added and brought back at the next meeting.
Sure, okay, and it makes it makes us consistent with in our policy, and we're not, you know, we're not doing anything to the residents that we wouldn't, I mean, we're not taking any special privileges or anything like that. So I think that's a good thing. So I will make that motion.
second.
Motion by Councilman Rambo and a second to bring that to the next council meeting. Cool. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Zaborski?
Yeah, just to clarify, I actually, before I came on council, was the one that suggested by email to multiple parties that the policy be revised to add that economic development projects should be excluded from the policy because they come forward from a different direction like this. And what came forward was the change that, you know, that was brought forward instead. So I do agree that, you know, Main Street's something that needs to happen, so I'm not saying it
Want to make the
doesn't.
motion? I mean, I'm happy to have you make the motion.
That was, what you did was fine. I just wanted to clarify, you know, I had suggested it, so I think it's appropriate. We look at it again, except we keep looking at it after the fact, not prior. It's always when there's an issue. Change it, but I've made my point. I told Mr. Lee I would be bringing it up at some point, so it seems appropriate today.
Okay, very good. Well, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Any abstention? All right. Thank you very much for that, gentlemen. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is sound mitigation for outdoor venues, the current regulations and other considerations. All awards, Director Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, over the last month, Mayor Garitano and Mr. Lee have been receiving calls from certain residents in the vicinity of Wildwood Pub and Grill about their outdoor music. Certainly, it's an issue that has been discussed in past years as well, and steps have been made by the business to address those concerns. Earlier this year, when Good News Brewing Company opened their first night, there was the first weekend, I should say, they had music at their venue, and there were again calls regarding the noise associated with the music and concerns about the time of night that it included. These concerns are recent, but over the years, we've had similar ones regarding Big Chief Roadhouse, Table 3, Llewellyn's, Big Bear Restaurant, etc. Generally speaking, the businesses have tried very hard, I think, to address the concerns that have been voiced by the city to them after the complaints were received. Many of them conclude the music at 9 p.m. and don't go beyond that time frame. The situation at Wildwood Pub and Grill, they generally limit the size of the bands to 1 or 2 people. Their locations are strategic in that they try to have the speakers pointing toward the businesses themselves or not toward the residential areas. And even some of them over the time have installed sound dampening efforts. Typically, the departments, Public Works and Planning, along with the Department of Administration, defer to what's available in our set of codes already. And those are identified in the memorandum, the noise code, the offenses code, the nuisance code. And then we have a group of site-specific ordinances where we've tried to tackle individual situations like Good News Brewing and Big Chief Restaurant. saying all of that, there seems to be just some desire to try to address this on a collective basis. So tonight, the department is seeking direction from the committee. Is what we have sufficient in terms of addressing these outdoor venues that have music? Meaning the 3 codes referenced plus the site-specific ordinances approved by city council for each of the locations? Or is a more general overall approach more appropriate? Again, the department would emphasize that many of the businesses respond positively to contacts from the city about this and try to address them on a case-by-case basis. So it's not an omission on the part of the businesses, I believe. It's just, again, is there a better approach to it? And that's what the direction the city is seeking from all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, I have one comment, and then I got Councilor Kranz.
Um,
I'm
I'm
gonna say
sorry,
one
sorry.
thing first. So my question real quick, before we get on this is, we've got the disturbance and penalties in place that are already there. And obviously, the number of venues in the city of Wildwood are rather limited that fall into this category of state, because Big Bear's not even there anymore. But in your purview, because you're the one dealing with them and the police, have these proprietors of these establishments that are, in question of, being in a situation to cause the problems for the residents, have they been accommodating to the city's approach to, alleviate the concerns or address the concerns of people that have complained? The reason I bring that up is because, in my opinion, is if they're partners with the city and they're accommodating and they work with us and they say, hey, okay, someone's complaining, we don't want to cause a problem, we're going to make some adjustments or put some landscaping or whatever we can do to try to alleviate it, is totally different, than someone that's just saying, no, screw off, I don't care, this is our business, we're going to do what we want, which I can't imagine that they're doing. So I would imagine if A is the case, then I don't know why we would need to enhance our code and penalties and all that if the people we're dealing with are working with us and we're working with them. That's all I wanted to say. Councilor Kranz?
Even the concerts, it's pretty loud. Can they just turn the volume down a little bit? And Good News was gonna go with acoustic guitars. And I can't understand why that would be loud. So I know you're gonna have people complaining regardless. But what kind of a decibel level do you set? I don't know. You have to gauge the noise somehow, right?
Yes.
Adjust your volume. Is it a volume thing? Apparently it is, but turn it down and we I mean, if it's reasonable, I can't understand Good News. If they said we're gonna go with acoustic guitars, they must have them amped up then.
I think in the case of Good News Brewing Company, they did have amplification, but it was for the singer, not necessarily for the music itself. And again, that's just been one instance, and that was opening weekend. Since
Okay,
then,
so it's gone away?
not received any
Oh,
complaints.
well, that's
I can't
perfect
speak
then.
for Mr. Lee.
'Cause we don't want to look for problems.
No, and certainly,
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say, is how many tickets have we issued that
Yeah.
are on our code already for
Yeah.
this particular purpose to these particular venues?
Mr. Lee and I met with the manager of Wildwood Pub and Grill yesterday. The police responded to 2 complaints. They were generated from calls to Mayor Garitano and Mr. Lee. The police found no justification to issue a summons for any of those. So again, to answer your question, they are a cooperative group. I cannot say.
I'm just saying, if we're not even exhausting what we already have on the books as far as violations, why would we enhance them?
Well,
You know?
so I will give you one instance with regards to Big Chief Roadhouse.
Yeah.
The issue arose with their music. We did address it, and it was a partnership between the owner, Ms. Mulholland, and the city. But at the end of the day, it became so onerous, what we required, that it just, for the most part, needed to be lessened, not increased. So I guess part of this may be, maybe what we have out there really is too much. We're over-regulating something that doesn't need to be as regulated. So it's not necessarily, the direction would be, we want to regulate more. It's maybe there's a reasonable set of requirements and they're less than what we have.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say though, I mean, I think to Councilor Krantz or somebody said that like, there's always gonna be somebody complaining no matter what's going on, right?
Yes.
And so, but if the number of complaints we're having, you can count on one hand. And the number of summonses or tickets that are issued are less than that. And when you engage with the proprietors or the owners of these establishments, they're willing to have conversation or work with us on
We got-
alleviating it.
and
And I
we're
don't think,
9 o'clock, I mean, we got a time on it, so that's reasonable.
It's more voluntary.
I got Councilman Rambo and then Councilman Revoluski.
Oh, that's voluntary?
Yeah, so
It's 11 PM for the.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah, this is, I actually have some experience in this because I live, within earshot of Stovall's. And, they play both kinds of music, country and western. I'm not a huge fan of either one of them, right? But it does my heart good to have the windows open or be sitting on the porch and so on and so forth and hearing people having a good time, you know, doing line dancing down at Stovall's because they've been doing it forever and so forth. I don't think there's been any, you didn't even mention it, so there haven't been any complaints. And they are much louder than the
concerts.
the concerts are miserable. They're so loud. And you are exactly right. We should dial them down about
Yeah, just
3 or
a
4
little bit.
notches because it's awful.
I
But
get it from
the
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 house.
other places,
My house.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's miserable. And, you know, being close to it, it's awful. But the other venues, you know, I've been to, you know, Wildwood Pub and Grill and, you know, all those places that you mentioned. And it's just kind of ambiance. And I get the feeling that people are going out in their backyard and they're listening and trying to hear something so they can call and complain to the mayor. And folks are just like that. But I don't think I think we do overregulate to some extent. You know, nobody wants to have one of our concerts every night or anything like that. But this is mostly acoustic music. They're hundreds of feet away and we keep a good handle on it. And that's my opinion, but my final thought is weren't we gonna invest in a dB meter? And you know, we could just make that judgment, go to the person's house that's complaining and see if it's over our threshold. And if they haven't shut down at their voluntary 9 PM thing or something, then we, you know, issue a summons or, you know, give them a warning or something. That seems like a reasonable way to handle it.
Is there a decibel threshold?
No, well, I think there is, yeah, in our noise.
So in our noise code, between 7 PM and 7 AM, it's 45 decibels at the property line, not at the source. And then during the day, 7 AM to 7 PM, it's 55 decibels.
So can we measure that? Do you have devices?
We purchased 2 sound meters, one for the police department and one for code enforcement.
And that's pretty low sound pressure level.
It is, but it is at the property line. And we used it at the first set of complaints that came out of Wildwood Pub and Grill at the start of the spring when they began playing music. And the police officer said that it was below the 55.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it
ordinance
took
is-
me,
Especially since the people that live there are acres and acres or across 100 or 109.
And its ordinance is 11 and they're agreeing to 9.
Yeah, and it's I mean, that's a very low standard. I mean, I would say a high standard, you have to, I don't know, it's high or low, but it's a very low noise level.
Yeah,
Um,
I got
Train whistles, 93.
Councilmember Revoluski.
My comment, I totally agree with Councilmember Rambo about it's kind of entertaining to hear some of the music. The 100-foot, if I wanted to complain, I'd say I hear Lafayette's band, which is more than 100 feet away, and the football games that are down the street. I mean, these things happen on the weekend. There are people trying to enjoy life. We
Yeah.
have businesses that are trying to attract customers, and we're
Yeah.
not gonna let them play music to bring people in to have a good time. I just think we are getting a little,
Come on down and join the
Hey,
party.
The main loud noise disturbances if.
I mean, if it's after a certain time and they call and say it's too noisy, then deal with it, but I don't think we should be restricting them anymore when we're trying to get people to come here.
And
It's
Councilor
not
McDonald,
Metallica either.
I concur, and I just spent 3 weeks ago lying in bed in a hotel room in Victoria, British Columbia, listening to a heavy metal band play until 2 a.m. in the morning in close quarters, and somehow I survived. So
unbelievable.
Not 24/7.
Councilor Roddenberry.
So it sounds like the appropriate action here is one of two things, either to do nothing or maybe even to review our current code and see if it should be open to right and liberalized a little bit or ease up on some of the regulations slightly. So
Let me get Councilor Trotter had his hand up. Let me get it, and then we'll ask.
I agree with everything that's been said. I don't think we can make a decision without having the data of how many complaints there are. So if there's 5 complaints in a year, I don't think this is even worth discussion.
yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
At 35,000.
We got a decibel meter, so what else can you do?
Well, again, Mr. Carter, there's been a rash of them the last few weeks. They prompted the mayor to contact the city administrator over the weekend. City administrator had to contact the police. So it's just an issue that seems right now to be in the front, the front window of the car for the mayor and some others. So the department, again, was seeking direction. And it's, in this instance, it doesn't feel like,
The leaves are starting to fall. It's getting a little loud.
yeah,
We won't be outside.
and partial, Mr. Chair, partially the reason to have it discussed is if there was an inclination on the part of the committee to move forward, we could have enough time to basically talk to the businesses, see what they think. Is it overregulated? Is it underregulated or somewhere in between? And then be prepared for the spring season. This would not be anything that would occur this year.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, I think it's seasonal. And it's, it's like, at the moment, like there was a line and it happens. How many complaints have we had? The only serious one I remember is Big Chief. And there was that one person that was complaining all the time.
Yeah, but she was allowing it to go on, wasn't she? She was violating what we had told her not to do.
Well, Director Vunich, would it be appropriate for the committee to just provide direction? I don't know if you need a motion for this or not, but to say, hey, why does the department just have a conversation with the business owners that are of that small group that we're talking about? And just get their feedback on what their thoughts are on relating to our ordinances and the current environment. Do they feel like there's a problem with our ordinances? Do they feel like there's a problem with residents in the area that are being overzealous? Or just what's their general thoughts and perspective, especially Good News Brewing, I'm interested to hear after basically one full season in operation. What are their, once again, I don't think we're looking for things to do. So there's no sense in going down a rabbit hole of having multiple meetings of conversations and discussions and motions to address something that nobody really has a problem with except 5 to 10 people out of 35,000 in the city.
I think Mr. Lee and I could certainly do that. Mr. Lee, do you have anything to add? Because you're the one getting the call on the weekend.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really been just the last couple of weeks. It's picked up a little bit on the weekends. There was a noise complaint that came in on a Thursday. They do respectfully stop at 9 p.m., which is suffice. But I would say the only note that I'd add is just within our current sound code, it's about not only the decibel reading, but also the amount of time that decibel reading is sustained. I don't know if the only question I would have, just looking at that from an enforcement perspective, I guess that there maybe could, and I'll defer to you, Mr. Vunich, on this, but maybe that would be the one thing for enforcement. It is difficult. It's easier just to defer to like a disturbance of the peace instead of actually citing the sound code itself, since it has that variable table that pretty much says if you are at this noise level for 2 seconds versus 30 minutes of sustained volume. that would be the one note here, but we can definitely have that discussion. We've spoken with the business owner too, and it does seem like some mitigation efforts are going to be taking place, which are going to be good.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that's helpful. Or if you guys have any feedback, and if you don't, we're good with that too.
We can certainly, and over the course of the winter and early spring, we can certainly contact them and talk it through and see what we got.
Awesome. Thank you very much, gentlemen. All right, the next item under planning matters is utility vehicles and golf carts on public streets and town center. Director Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, Mr. Galani and I had a conversation via email regarding this particular item. The department did do some brief research prior to tonight's meeting and found in 2019, the Board of Public Safety took this matter up as well, decided not to authorize any changes to the current prohibition. Tonight, the department is presenting it back to you. Things have changed in the last 6 years. Golf courts and ATVs have gotten better and more safe. Certainly, town center is an area where a lot of people ask if they could bring a golf cart to an event such as our concerts. And for all intents and purposes, the department is saying that if there is an inclination to move forward in this direction, there's a group of agencies, other providers that need to be brought in, receive comments from. So tonight, the intent is to basically see if there's an interest in moving forward with the research. If not, certainly we won't. There is all of those entities from the police department here in the city of Wildwood to our Metro West Fire Protection District because of its service to town center and many others that have crossed this bridge before and certainly would be to our benefit to have their valuable input. If there are any questions, I would defer to the chair and certainly Mr. Lee.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say, I actually had brought this up and discussed it with Joe and had this added to the agenda. And the reason why is because obviously here in Ward 8 specifically, I'm approached constantly with this question. And, you know, I know in the past we've looked at it. I know there's other municipalities around, specifically more St. Charles County, Cottleville to be specific, that has had it going on for a long time. They've done it pretty successfully. The one thing, and I'm not taking a specific stance on it more or less yet, outside of, I feel like we lump UTVs and golf carts in one category as in they're being the same. And I don't think that part is fair because I know UTVs these days, you know, number one, they can travel at the speed of a car, so they wouldn't hamper any other traffic on the roadways if they were on the roadways. Most of them are caged and have roofs and are enclosed and have doors and seat belts and all of that kind of stuff. And so I think that's totally different than potentially golf carts, right? That typically don't have seat belts, may not travel at a speed to where they could, you know, bring an issue on the road. My thought was like, if we did something like that, it would literally be like Old Manchester and Town Center, like, you know, major thoroughfares and the neighborhoods, surrounding neighborhoods. And then the other thought process I had was that, like they've done in other areas where the owner of the vehicle would have to apply for a specific permit with the city, pay a nominal fee and get a sticker to where we would have knowledge of who they were and what they owned. And then only drivers that were licensed by the state of Missouri and over 16 years older would be allowed to drive that vehicle regardless. So you couldn't have teenagers or kids or anything like that. And honestly, the other thing about it too is, you know, if you're up in Town Center on the weekend, there's people driving these things around anyway. I mean, the UTVs especially. I know of somebody that lives out in St. Albans that regularly comes to Dearborg's in their UTV and doesn't have a thought in the world about it. So, you know, so that's the one piece of it too. And I think if we manage it and created something around maybe that part of it, maybe we looked at the UTV piece of it now because of the safety and everything else attached to them, and maybe, you know, a separate conversation for the golf cart side of it, if that was the case. So that's where that came from. But like I said, I get this brought up to me constantly by people in this ward specifically. And I do think it does to a certain degree foster more community because it makes it easier for people to get around from their neighborhood in close proximity to town center and that type of thing. So Councilmember Cutchin?
Yeah, this is kind of parallel to this discussion. I know over in Ward 5, we've got kids on motorized scooters and motorized
I was gonna-
bicycles that are small, and then some of them are large. I mean, they're out in the street. I mean, I don't
Those
know.
things go 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen near misses, from cars coming
get
in.
killed.
These guys, you can't, at night, you can't see them very well. They don't have any kind of lights or anything on
There's a
them.
couple teenagers that just got hit by cars down at Sulphur Springs in Manchester a couple weeks ago on those electric bikes because they don't realize how, those things go 40, 45 miles an hour. They don't realize how fast they go and they can't anticipate. So that, I mean, to me, that's dramatically more dangerous than a
Exactly.
UTV that's enclosed with doors and seat belts and headlights and taillights and blinkers, everything else.
Maybe that's something we want to look at.
Councilmember Rambo?
Yeah, there's a lot here, and we have to separate the UTV question from the golf cart question. You're exactly
Yeah.
right. And Deb's right too, the scooters and e-bikes, those are a third aspect of this. There's electric vehicles are good. I'm talking about golf carts right now.
Yeah.
And there's a small L libertarian case to be made for letting people drive vehicles that they own and so on and so forth. Golf carts are limited to 20 miles an hour. They're, 800 to 1,200 pounds, depending on how tricked out they are and so forth. But the collision resistance is just abysmal. And if we're talking about town center, we're talking about crossing a major highway, which is regulated against for the most part. And the fact that they're 20 miles an hour, Taylor Road is 25 miles an hour, and we reduced that from 35 miles an hour because the traffic study, traffic engineers will look at the 85th percentile of speed without a speed limit. And they will that's how they set the speed as an appropriate level, and it was 35 miles an hour. And then a few years ago, we decided this is just too fast, and we wanted to keep kids safe in the crosswalks and whatnot. So we reduced it to 25. And if we say it's okay for golf carts, suddenly we reduced it to 20, and there's 3 or 4 cars backing up, as you may have suggested, at the light. That normally wouldn't because they're waiting for a golf cart to tool around, and maybe it was only going 15, maybe its battery is low and so on and so forth. I think we'd be causing a lot of congestion, but as a practical matter, the enforcement, if you stop a 14-year-old that looks 18, if you don't stop a 14-year-old that looks 18, it's negligence for the cops. And if you do stop an 18-year-old that looks 14, it's harassment. And so it would be very difficult to police. And I just think a vehicle like that doesn't have appropriate lights and they've got some lights, but it's not right. Yeah, and so forth. I just think it's a really, really bad idea to talk about golf carts. The first time, it only takes one negligent car driver to cause a
Tragedy.
grease spot on the road, right?
Yeah.
And the minute we have that kind of a tragedy, we will be looked at like, idiots for letting this happen, because the communities I've been in that are driving golf carts, it's people wanting, like Soulard, people wanting to avoid DUIs, right? So they drive to the bar in a golf cart. That's literally true. The city has.
Yeah, I will say Cottleville does it in St. Charles, and Cottleville is very similar to Wildwood.
Yeah, but it's golf communities.
It is, but they've got some
and some-
roads going through there that are like old Manchester and 40 miles an hour and stuff, and they just, but not to say, my perspective on that was not to insinuate that we should do golf carts. I was saying, we've always talked about golf carts and UTVs as one and the same.
I agree.
I think that needs to be two separate
So-
conversations. My personal opinion is that I don't really have a problem with UTVs because they're dramatically more safe. They can operate in the same capacity as a car. And they're typically enclosed, caged with doors. They've got all the things.
Yeah,
But-
that's,
All of them.
there,
But,
go ahead.
well, I'm saying, but we could set parameters on what the specifications would have to be, because you would still have to get a permit from City Hall.
So I was
Easement-
hoping, I was hoping
Go
to
ahead.
finish up with the
Yeah, go ahead.
UTV aspect.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I have one, I have a Gator, and you're right, it'll go as fast as a car, but the suspension is not set up for that, and the tires specifically, 12 pounds of air in the tires, and they're big mushy things and so on, so it's going like this if you get up above, 25 or 30 miles an hour, but that doesn't mean that some 16-year-old kid is not gonna drive it to its absolute limit, and the first corner he goes around, he's gonna go tumbling because they're very high centered. You're talking about safety, the safety is there in terms of the roll cage. The safety is not there in terms of the brakes, the suspension, and particularly the crash resistance. They just they're not any better. I wouldn't be any happier getting hit in a golf cart in my Gator than I would be in a golf cart, because they're just not safe, but they go a whole lot faster. And so I think we would be doing, residents a disservice if we opened it up, because I mean, you can't regulate safety to perfect extent, but you can avoid the unsafe activities by just not allowing UTVs. I wouldn't think that it's an urgent thing for us to be even considering this at this time. I mean, UTVs are just not that, it's most people don't have them. And if you do have them, you're looking for places to drive them. And, it would be back to the same thing with the 14-year-olds looking 18 and 18-year-olds looking 14. The cops would have a nightmare trying to enforce, the regulations that we've established. It just seems like it's a mess. So I would be against it without a whole lot more information that makes it sound better than it does to me.
Yeah, I just wanted to get the appetite and the thought process of everybody, because I get questions a lot. Vicky?
And just one comment, I think, agree that there's a difference between the two. I worked for two different companies that had UTVs or some sort, but they were licensed through the state. So they had to meet certain criteria to be on the road. So if you look at it, I don't know how they're getting here from St. Albans without having a license on it, but I
Well,
think you
they-
have to have a license to be on public streets. And that's part of the criteria for them. So just a mention as you look at it, you might want to consider, are they licensed through the state? Because that helps the police too in their role.
Yeah. Scott?
I think probably before we take consideration of this issue much further, we should probably do what Director Vunich alluded to, which is to get the input of
Please.
first responders that would be involved with this.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
the paramedics in particular, with the fire department, the police department, what issues do they see with enforcement? We benefit here from our police coverage being from the St. Louis County Police Department, so I'm sure they probably have experience in other areas that they could research and.
I think at the very least, it's just doing our due
Yeah.
diligence to say we looked at it, to see, and that way, if
That would be
residents
my
have questions or bring it up, to your point with the libertarian approach, like, we're not just bringing our fist down and saying you can't do this.
But
But we've looked into it, we've done due diligence, we've looked at the most up-to-date statistics and feedback from the police, and here's what our decision is at that point. Councilmember.
Yeah, I had a place up in Clear Lake, Iowa, and they allowed golf carts, and the city did require a permit. You had to just go to the city to get your license. And as a operating a car, most frustrating thing is to have a golf cart ahead of you. When you're trying to go, like, you got a 3-mile run to the grocery store or something, and you sit there.
Yeah.
I don't like them. I'll just be
Yeah, I
honest,
think-
they belong on the golf
Golf
course.
course.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
either, I'm just saying, and like I said, I think there's a difference between
Right.
golf cart and UTVs for sure, two separate conversations.
But,
I'm not saying either one of them's
You know,
right.
open to driving a golf cart to a concert, maybe that, allow that one night or something, but on a regular basis.
At least the city council should.
yeah. The biggest argument against them is 100 and 109.
Yeah,
you know, because that's
For
town
sure.
center. It bisects town center north, south and east, west, and people crossing those roads, we're asking for trouble. It's
Well,
not
you'd have
a-
to limit it. You couldn't do all of town center, I don't
Will they
think.
be on the
Because
trails?
that's-
That's all we need.
yeah,
But
they'd
yeah,
be on the trail and
at
then
this
you'd be
point, why don't
walking
we
with your
just-
Motion?
dog.
You want a motion
Yeah, do we
to
need a
have?
motion or do you just take a direction to go look up that information?
The other one, just.
I'd make a motion that you contact the various entities that you have listed in your memo and that you bring back their perspectives to our next meeting or whenever it's convenient. We've got budget coming up, so this isn't top of the list for something to do. And that we then, another thing would be city attorney information. So I'm glad that you reiterated that, but I say we take it, give it back to the department, let them do some more due diligence research, and then bring it back and see whether this is even fiscally responsible for the city of Wildwood to take on regulating these activities.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll-
second, okay. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention?
I had a modification, but Mike, I would suggest that you look at golf carts separately from UTVs, separately from scooters,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
please.
We are getting a lot more complaints about electric scooters.
Those,
Electric scooters and electric bikes.
It's like this, they're little
Yeah.
bits sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
Crap.
Little kids and they go 30 miles an hour. I'm a cyclist from way back and I hate e-bikes myself, but.
Almost got run over by one last time.
All right, moving along, we've got the recent development trends within the city of Wildwood. Anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns related to that? Seeing none, we're just now getting into.
He's feeling the pressure.
This is,
7 minutes.
Director Vidic, you got 9 minutes to get through these things.
Yeah.
Village Green Phase 2, the design and engineering component of the all-inclusive play facility, Director Vidic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, the department received from Ideal Landscape Group, which is part of the Unlimited Play team that will be providing services for our all-inclusive playground. The information received from Ideal Landscape Group was an estimate for the design and engineering services related to the playground and all of its components. The amount is $123,000. You want to put it in perspective, that's half the cost of CDI in Phase 1 of Village Green. The department is seeking authorization to proceed forward with legislation that would be presented at the October 13th City Council meeting. At that October 13th City Council meeting, the department believes that it can reduce the cost of this. For tonight's purposes, would like authorization to prepare legislation that would say not to exceed $123,000. Are there any questions? Mr. Lee, Ms. Ripito, and I are available.
Do you have anything?
I'll make that motion.
Second it.
Got a motion, a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, you're gonna pull it
Any
out.
opposed?
How'd I do?
And any abstentions? All right.
Can I make one comment? Because I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
Swings. Everywhere I go, every park I go, there's not enough swings. Everybody's asking why there aren't more swings. Is there any way to incorporate that into the Village Green playground?
Another swing?
They put a lot in there.
Yeah, there are several sets of swings that are proposed as part of the premier design that was selected by the committee. We also retained the swing set from Anniversary Park, and we were going to put it down in Glencoe Park,
Oh, good.
but I'll bring that up during our capital improvement discussion.
I just tell my kids it's their chance to learn to wait there.
That's a
You
good idea.
obviously don't have a 3-year-old.
We're in 6.
It's enough.
Close enough.
All right, this takes us into the next item, which is the Village Green Phase 2 fundraising efforts for Ward 8, Ms. Ribito.
I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to compete with Director Vunich's last presentation, but I'll try to be brief. So the fundraising group met again on August 27th, and we've had some shifting of members. We have 2 new members, and then, as you likely know, Paula Hassan is no longer with the city, so she won't be helping out with this project anymore. But she did leave us with a news flash that we are going to put up soon. I just wanted to have a landing page on the website, which also went up today. So we'll get to that. But Unlimited Play actually created an itemized donation page for us, and we are the first city to have that because apparently I ask too many questions. And so you can go through
I
and
guarantee you she asked too many questions.
it's
That
true.
was
It's,
great.
it's an ongoing problem.
That's good though.
But yeah,
That's
so
a
now
good thing. That's a very good thing.
we don't have to keep track of it. We don't have to go through a spreadsheet. And so that is a very good thing. And I think they're gonna be offering this in the future. So, but the group also discussed, we distributed the fundraising catalogs and the postcards and all of that, discussed upcoming opportunities like Celebrate Wildwood to inform people and how to stay organized and such. And the group is gonna be meeting once a month moving forward to just kind of brainstorm new ideas, strategies, discuss who we've talked to, and upcoming donations. So that being said, the city does now have this on our website for the all-inclusive Village Green Playground. So it has a home, and when you click into it, there's a story map for the all-inclusive playground. All of this information was taken from the catalog and just put into a different format. And we have the 3D fly-through video here, sponsorship opportunities at the top, but then this goes through the stories, and Twitter doesn't like this on Zoom. It's much better not on Zoom. But then this is my favorite part. I'm very excited to show.
This is the
So
part she did by herself.
this is, yeah, and I didn't know how to do it. So that was the impressive part.
Good job.
So on this map, this is an interactive map, and you can go through and click on any one of these little tags, and or over here. And speaking of swings, here are inclusive swings, and we got information from Unlimited Play as to, what these various different components are good for, what disabilities they contribute, that they're good for. And use this as an opportunity for an educational experience. And so all of them have a little description. I don't have all of them up there yet, but they also have a link to the sponsorship page. So with every single one, it says sponsor me for however much you sponsor it for. And it takes you straight into there. Make things as easy as possible for people to give us money for our playground. Then this also goes into the Voices of Wildwood, and it has quotes and stuff and photos from our residents and their families. And then down at the bottom, it also has takes you to Unlimited Play's website, the sponsorship catalog, Village Green, and it's available now, but it's a work in progress. I still have more equipment and stuff to get up there, but wanted to have a home for it so that we could get the word out there, and then we can put the news flash up and direct people here as well. And so that being said, the group has already had 3 pieces of equipment sponsored, so about $7,000 thus far. And there are a few more that I have heard people are interested in. So hopefully this will work out well.
Did you where's your graph that says 25% funded or whatever you said you were gonna?
So Unlimited Play actually has that on theirs. And so we do have a link to that. If you go here.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay,
25%. And so, yeah, I think we're actually at 26% now, so.
Okay, and are we offering incentives? I'm sorry, I'm jumping in here, but were we offering any incentives for the people to contribute?
I mean, other than just contributing to a great.
No, I understand that, but we talked a lot about
Yeah,
that. and-
so people will have recognition in the park, and in the catalog, it goes through the different tiers. I plan on putting that on our story map as well, and then also have a sponsorship section on the story map so that we can start with that thank you there. And then from there, like they'll have in park recognition as well. We haven't quite landed on the exact.
Rob, I saw the $25,000 tree still available if you wanna do that.
I'm thinking about it. But I need recognition, right? Maybe I can go spray paint my
Make a
name.
motion to
Number,
erect
it's
statue
negotiable.
of Councilmember.
Melanie, I'm sorry, how did you
That'd
get
be
to?
bronze,
page,
you can fiberglass
the
or
web, our website, one you just developed, how did you get to that?
So it's under city parks. So on the city's website, it's, if you go to recreation and go to the city parks, it's here with all of our other parks. And I might actually move it up to the top.
Okay.
So right now
Good
it's
idea.
here,
Top.
but that link can be anywhere. And so I plan on plugging it as much as I possibly can.
Okay.
And then we'll do a news flash that will also lead straight to the story map.
I just wanted to make sure I knew where it was.
Yep, absolutely. And so with that,
If you know
concludes-
anybody who would be interested that may not necessarily know, we're working on a donor list now to send out information and to invite them to come later to learn more about it. We'd be happy to get that information. If you know anybody we should add to the list.
Yeah, if you have any suggestions of people that might be willing to sponsor, we're happy, like the group is happy to chat with people about it. So by all means, send me names or businesses, or if you think of anybody, just shoot me an email.
Councilmember Cutchin.
Yeah, I'm just clarifying my comment. It's mostly typical swings that people complain because there aren't enough. Is our typical swings gonna be here in this park?
There's both. There's some of them, and they're on the same swing set. You know, there's some that are all
Yeah, it looks like-
Like the one at Community Park?
Yeah, similar to that. And so there's two sets of swings, one on the smaller kid side, one on the larger kid side, and both of them have both the regular swings as well as the more inclusive swings.
Okay.
Councilmember Rottenberg.
So, this is under items ready for consideration. So were you looking for direction from the committee on this topic, or is this more for information?
The heading's more just, it's a discussion item instead of not ready for action.
Okay, all right, perfect.
This was intended to just be an update.
All right.
And show off a little.
Update.
One last question.
Uh-huh.
You had talked about bricks that people could sponsor bricks. Is a page similar to this going up for that?
Maybe, hard maybe. So I'm also in the process of trying to find a landing place for this. Travis and I had looked at the Village Green page, which I will show you here, is it just kind of needed to be revamped. And so we've got all of this information on here, and then it goes into the original
original
public input
plans and
and
stuff,
that, and then over, yeah, it's gonna freeze up because that's what it does, which is part of the reason that I would like it on a story map. So we were essentially going to, let me find my,
Originally wanted to try and link through their site, but it got a little confused and
Yeah,
we do it on our
yeah,
site.
so
I've talked to Melanie about some of
the
that.
videos on the Village Green website keep freezing up and such, so I'm also working on one for the Village Green that is here and kind of goes through the exact same information that is on our website currently, except prettier. And then I also have one for, this links into Village Green Phase 1, like updates and such. Down at the bottom, it has Phase 1 details and Phase 2 details and progress. And so they'll all be linked together. And that being said, the bricks are more with the Phase 1,
Yeah,
part of the Phase 1. And so, yes, ideally, I would love to have this hook up into that so that people can just go directly from one to the other with the sponsorship opportunities there. But as far as the unlimited play, we aren't offering bricks. It was discouraged by unlimited play.
okay.
Apparently it's a pain. And so we have.
Not much
Well, we
money
don't
in it.
really have.
It's
bricks
Not much
now.
money in it, right?
But yeah, partly.
It's not part of the playground. The bricks aren't part of the playground.
Exactly.
I
We
didn't
talked
think-
about doing them around,
Yeah.
you know,
in
the
the
paths
school,
and
but-
stuff, but we already offer it at Village Green, and so it seemed a little redundant.
So I have a question.
Councilmember Randall.
Yeah, I will love comment actually. This park is important enough, unique enough and expensive enough that it ought to be its own You know,
It's on the
it should be separate, yeah, it should be separate from Village Green, in my opinion. You can certainly link to it from the Village Green thing, but the more exposure we get on this park, the more likely we are to sell, you know, people on, you know, sponsoring, you know, sponsorship opportunities and so on and so forth. But I think this park is at least as much a centerpiece of our community, or gonna be, as Village Green itself is.
That was part of the reason that I wanted the two separate little buttons,
Oh,
you
it's
know,
your
we have
idea.
Village Green
Okay,
and then we
okay.
have the all-inclusive. And also so that we could link the all-inclusive to more easily and in different things rather than having to go through the Village Green and then finding.
Okay, you're thinking that way anyway, so
Yeah.
it was worth mentioning. Thanks.
Mhm.
You've done a fabulous job.
Yes, she is.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's awesome. So
Thank
thank you
you.
for all that work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, well, that takes us into Wildwood Recreation Programming and Facility Reservations and Event Registrations. Does anybody have any questions or comments related to either of those two topics? All right, seeing none.
No, I have one quick one. Do we have any word on number of registrations for the Tour de Wildwood, which is coming up here?
Believe we have 30 registrants now.
Okay.
We tripled since we last talked about it at the beginning of this week. And we did talk to Mike Weiss with Big Shark Cycling, and it's a trend. He believes that we'll easily get our 200 that we typically have for the event each year.
If you get 200 registrations, is that what you think you need to have in order for this to be
Yes.
a worthwhile event and break even and so on?
Actually, we got very close to breaking even last year, and we were at 143.
Okay.
So we actually think we're gonna do better this year. So we're proceeding forward.
Is the
Thank you.
route map published, or is it on the website?
Yes. And it's a new route. Gary Cruz, our former superintendent of parks, prepared it. Mike Weiss reviewed it. They both claim it's a great course. It takes you to all the highlights, and it's got about 2,000 feet of climb, which I understand it'll make it a little tough too.
Jump on my e-bike and.
I told Director Vonich that I'm gonna ride this. I told Director Vonich to be sure he has the paramedics ready.
I really want to, but I haven't been on my bike all summer.
Awesome, thank you so much. And then last, I've got the Village Green Phase 1 update.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I have the Phase 1 update, and I also included a site visit, but I forgot that the sun goes down pretty early these days now, so please feel free to visit at your leisure. The biggest thing, and the thing I want to conclude with, is just the utility poles and the overhead electric lines are gone. Thank you for staying the course. I was the one that stood before you probably several months ago and said, we could get by with the
Yeah.
poles and lines in place. You did great. It changed the.
It was amazing.
It looks wonderful.
Yeah, so.
It's all sodded now, guys, and
Yeah.
everything, and
Yeah.
most of the stones in.
So,
Pick a day to go walking.
yeah, it's just, well, like I say, and the flat work is supposedly scheduled still this week. The flat work is probably the last most intrusive thing. Now that Ameren, Missouri is for the most part complete. The landscaping's been going in, so thanks for staying the course. You will get a gratitude.
And Joe, the cabin passed.
Yes. And
Aren't you happy?
Yes, he is.
That cabin's
Smiling,
that cabin's
yeah.
gonna
He's
be on its
speechless.
logo someday.
He's
It's,
speechless.
it's gonna be the main, a
Certainly.
distinguishing feature.
I understand there's a slew of priorities out there,
Yeah.
everything from A to Z. You all took the risk. Certainly, I've heard other comments about it. For right now, I'm focused on getting Village Green Phase 1.
All right.
All right, well, thank you very much for that update, and definitely check it out. And perhaps on Saturday for Celebrate Wildwood, come a little earlier and take a gander out there.
Will we allow people to walk over there?
Well, you as city council people who are, so to speak, on the limb because you're funding it, certainly, but we're gonna try to keep you on. It is construction, so.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So stay off it.
yeah.
Yes, but
Yeah.
tonight I just.
We have to celebrate Wildwood.
down in the field. at the
Where we've
theater.
always had it. Or
So,
we've had
so
it
you
for
would
us.
recommend, I can't go on it.
Oh, certainly,
Okay.
yeah, it's just a large group of people,
Oh, yeah,
yeah, and you all are,
I'm kind of
you're
curious.
covered by our liability. Just the fact.
Pick a different day to meander up there and to celebrate wild.
I was
That
just
way-
saying, I was saying in the morning at like 8 o'clock in the morning before we get the golf carts to go to Schnucks, because there's nobody else.
Get on the
Yeah.
ATVs.
Yeah, bring your ATV up here.
Get your golf course.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys. We don't have an executive session tonight, and then the not ready for action items are there for your viewing. And other matters for consideration. Does anybody have any miscellaneous? Director Runich.
Chris Nager, our superintendent of Parks and Recreation, and Stacy Chansky, our recreations supervisor. Sent Melanie a note, remind everyone to pick up their Celebrate Wild Put packets if they haven't yet. So,
I've got my
Packets, what
car
are
sitting on my
packets?
passenger.
See your mailbox.
So I-
Do that.
Is anybody, you guys want to go back up there?
Our
Let me in.
our next meeting is Tuesday, October 21st, 2025. It's a budget meeting, operating and capital components, so everybody try to be here if you can. And outside of that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilman Rambo, second by Councilman Rottenberg. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Bye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
thank you
All
very
right,
much.
guys, thank you.
Good job, Chair. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Melanie.
Yeah.